Have you ever wondered how you could load multiple projects? So this is what's going on here. I have a very large quilt that belongs to a customer, lovely lady, and we are going to be able to quilt the pillows that go with the quilt by adding it to the bottom of the quilt. Now she thought way ahead and she gave us plenty of backing and plenty of batting, and now the next part will be based around each of the squares. They are going to be pillows. I'm going to base them, and then I am going to quilt a pantograph design that matches what I did on top with the quilt. I'm going to start and stitch it from left to right, and because everything will be stabilized, that's going to be just wonderful. Pull up my bobbin thread, give it a little tug. I'm going to baste around. I have my Intelliquilter in manual mode, and now I'm turning on the horizontal lock. And now I'm going to baste this project. Once you turn it now, I'm going to stitch towards me. This really doesn't take any time at all. The blocks are very square, which is lovely. I'm using my left hand just to scooch everything even better in line. Now I'm going to turn off the vertical, turn on the horizontal, and I'm going to travel going to the left now. I'm simply basting. This is the same method that I use when I am quilting a quilt. Of course, this is a quilt. It's just a very small version of a quilt. And as I travel, I'm just helping the fabric. Everything is looking good. So I'm going to continue doing this on the other 3 squares, and then we will set up a pantograph that will fit over this entire area. All of the basting is finished now. I have my 4 blocks, which will be pillow tops. They've been stabilized, so I have basted them to my batting and my backing, and they are fitting within the throat of my machine. All 4 of the pillow tops have been basted. We need to tell Intelliquilter about the pillow toppers that we need to quilt next. There's 4 of them. I could mark on quilt and do each of these blocks individually. I would have 4 blocks. That would be okay, wouldn't it? Intelliquilter would stitch within the blocks. I wouldn't even have to worry about anything coming unsewn because they would be inside the block. And I'm going to choose to create a pantograph that will stitch over all 4 blocks without even having to advance, because these blocks are fitting within the throat space of my machine. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to do mark on quilt. I'm going to make sure that I include all 4 blocks, and then once I have that set up, I'll bring in the pantograph. So this is where I'm going to be placing another pantograph. I am going to go to add edit pattern. I'm going to add a pattern, and I am choosing to do a pantograph. Use an existing block or define a new one. I need to define a new one, so I'm going to go to new block. How do I want to define the block? I'm going to mark on quilt so that I have all 4 blocks included in my pantograph space. I'm going to go mark on quilt. Move the needle to its first point. So I'm going to back up our view here so you can see a little bit more. I'm going to move the needle to the first point. I'm just going to come over here all the way, make sure that I'm including the blocks. So, okay, now as I move my needle, I'm clicking OK. If I had my presentation clicker here, I would be doing that. I'm just drawing a block large enough to include all of the smaller blocks. These are blocks that will be pillow covers. This gives you an idea of what I can see. It's really going to be pretty, isn't it? So I'm going to say finished. I'm going to choose to stitch continuous on the outside, and I'm going to commit. Now it is time to sew the quilt. I'm going to choose this row first, continue, and because there's only 2 rows, I'm going to go ahead and choose the second row, this one, continue, and I am going to stop to cut threads. When I touch sew quilt, the machine is going to move to the beginning of row 1, and we're going to stitch out this pantograph. And this below that you can see on the screen is where I used marked on quilt, and I actually included all 4 blocks, which are pillow tops. I created 1 block and I quilted an edge to edge. I've completed this area with a pantograph. I reduced the scale because these are smaller blocks with smaller piecing. So I had actually ended up with 2 rows, and I did a mark on quilt to identify where I wanted the pantograph to go. That worked beautifully, love it. I didn't go outside of my quilt, this pillow top, the quilt area. Now this area between the pillow tops, that is going to be trimmed. That's going to be cut because they are going to be separate pillow tops. And this will be finished into a nice pillow that will go well with the quilt. Now, I have to be careful. I'm using glide thread. I love, love, love glide thread, and this is lemon ice. I need to make sure that when this edge is cut, that the quilting doesn't come undone. So I'm going to do a stay stitch. I'm going to stitch right along the very edge of the pillow top, travel over here, and go back up the other direction. That is going to stitch over my quilting so that when this is trimmed out, my quilting won't come undone. That's a good thing. So I'm going to bring up my bobbin thread. My stitch regulator is on my APQS Lucy. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to try to stay out of the way of the camera so you can see I'm just driving right along where the binding will be. Just going to take a little detour over here and catch the other side. And now when this quilt is trimmed, I do not have to be concerned about the quilting coming out. So thanks for joining me.